We're up, sir.
Welcome to the Polk County Board of Supervisors, Tuesday, June 16th.
Call to order. Do we have a receipt of evidence and opinion of proper notice?
The County Board of Supervisors June 16th meeting notice and agenda was posted in the Government Center building in 2 places, posted on the county website, and published in a legal newspaper the week of June 8th, 2020. In addition, on Thursday, January 4th, 2020 at 6:35 p.m., the Office of the County Clerk distributed copies of such notice of meeting and proposed resolutions to supervisors via email or mail. The notice of amended agenda was posted in the Government Center, posted on the county website, and copies of such notice of meeting distributed to the supervisors and media via email on Saturday, June 13th, 2020.
Corporation Counsel, does that constitute proper notice? Roll call.
Brad Olson. Doug Rowdy.
Here.
Steve Warrendahl.
Here.
Chris Nelson.
Here.
Tracy LeBlanc. Brian Masters. Michael Pritchard. Not yet. Okay. Jim Edgell. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. Kim O'Connell. Amy Middleton. Jay Luke.
Here.
Fran Duncanson. Russ Arcand. John Bonaprise.
Here.
Joe Demeling.
Here.
Jim is here today with us.
Yes.
Okay, John, would you start us off with Pledge of Allegiance? I know you're going to.
We have the family of many years. We start reading when we're able to. We'll have a moment of silence. And practice that to take place. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Remain standing. We'll take 1 minute of silence for Jim. Thanks, Jim, and thanks to Jim's family for being with us here tonight. Yeah. Okay, number 5, disclose of board member conflicts of interest regarding matters noticed on this agenda. I guess, again, how we'll handle this is we can have discussion, but if anyone feels like they have a conflict with anything, just please raise their hand. I think that would be our normal protocol, that we can have discussion, but if you're going to have a conflict with anything on an agenda from here on out, that you would notify us that, and you can be part of the discussion, but you won't be voting on it. And we'll wait till we get to those items. Do we have a motion to approve the agenda? Do we have a second?
Second.
Oh, I have a question.
Okay, after this first and a
sorry.
second, we have a first and a second. Are there any discussions or questions?
Got it. Apologize for that.
That's okay.
I just want to make sure, I know we had trouble, we're kind of getting our sea legs on this technical COVID era stuff. Does the public know how to comment? Because I got a bunch of questions on this and I didn't really know how to answer this, and maybe you know how to answer. So like, do they know how to raise their hand virtually, and how do they get in line? And
Okay, so Supervisor Nelson, I do not think this is part of approving the agenda.
Oh, it's not?
No.
Okay, I just want to make
So
sure.
that would be something if you want to talk about it at a different spot or on an agenda item, but this is not the proper time. I don't believe that we would be talking about IT stuff.
So do you want me to bring it up on number 8 under public comment?
Well, no.
I think we just need to kind
So
of
just-
clarify.
Yeah, so we can't talk about, it's not on the agenda item, so I would just say that that item, maybe you could bring it up under the administrator's report when you can talk to the administrator directly with questions. I think that would be the proper time to bring it up, Corporation Counsel, would that be okay? Okay. So we'll bring it up.
Well, as long as the public, because the public comment piece, number 8, comes before that. So I'm just asking the question that I was asked and I didn't answer it because I didn't know the question or the answer. So I felt like
Sure.
we should do it properly as a county board, or if it's corp counsel
Sure.
or.
Yeah, there's not
Chad.
an agenda item to have that discussion. It would be my chair's ruling. Supervisor Masters?
Statement on how that would public comment.
Sure. Okay, that would be maybe the proper way we could do it before public comment. That the administrator could have a discussion and he could ask anyone else that would want to chime in. We'll do that then. Right before public comment, we will ask the administrator, Chad, to talk to us about that. Supervisor Rowdy.
I'm waiting for it before public comment. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? So we have a first and a second on approving the agenda. All in favor by saying aye? Aye. Opposed, same sign. Carried. Matters offered for adoption on consent agenda. We got a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor by saying aye? Aye. Opposed, same sign. Carried. So under public comment, would Chad or Vince like to address the public comment question?
I'm curious,
Yes?
is there people upstairs that will come in?
I checked, there's nobody. No, there's not. All right, Vince, would you just talk about public comment before it starts?
Sure, maybe we'll tag team on this. I'll let Chad handle the technical aspect of it. But the public comment, as you know, because of the COVID, we're trying to work out the technology, trying to work out the spaces, keep everybody safe. So what we've been working toward is improving our technology so that folks can call in on WebEx, and during this time, they can signal on there that they want to make a public comment. And then Chad or whoever's working the system there will go through whoever has those comments. It has not gone perfectly, I admit it. But I can say from where we started, if you all remember your training session, we've come a long way. And so we are getting better. There has also been some confusion because at a lot of committee meetings, we actually stopped public comments and we asked people to send their comments in writing in advance, which is okay. But there has been several supervisors and several citizens say, no, sometimes we want that interactive ability. So I think I've talked with most chairmen of the committees, and it's up to the committee chairman to decide that final, how we do it. But I think we will allow people to either, if they want to come in, they can go up to the West Conference Room in most cases and have basically a direct line. We'll put them on the video and they can comment, or they could call in as well and still give their public comments. We'll time it for 3 minutes, just like as if they were here. But they can always still send in their comments in writing. Do you want to address any more technical stuff?
First of all, Mr. Pritchard, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. We can hear you now. For participants.
This afternoon, I was muted out, I believe, but I'm on a telephone, but I can also see my computer screen, so whatever.
All right. For participants, when the chairman opens public comment, I will unmute all the participants right now. Everybody except Supervisor Pritchard is muted. When I unmute, please identify yourself, and then one at a time, as the chairman invites the next person to speak, you speak for your time. For the other people not talking at the time, since everyone's unmuted, please turn off your microphones on your own until it's your turn, so we don't give feedback. That way everybody will be able to talk to the board. And bear with us as we go through this first time, but that should work. So when the chairman opens up public comment, I'll unmute everyone, and then we can just work as the chairman directs.
Okay. Does that answer
Some of the questions about how public comments asked Supervisor Rowdy?
I suppose you could say, when you look at tonight's Tuesday, June 16th agenda, it says public comments and 3 minutes per person. That's the way it used to always be. But under our last, if you go back to a series of agendas, it talks about virtual public comments, and it does not do that on here. And then now you brought up that we can go, that the public can go upstairs, but none of those explanations are forthcoming in this agenda. That's my concern. That's all.
Well taken. We'll work on that and get better at it, I'm sure. Okay, so we are going to take public comment today. It's 6:15 roughly. So public comment will go to 6:45. If we take up the whole 30 minutes, we'll take 3 minutes per person. The first person to make public comment, go ahead and state your name and where what town you're from or village, and let you know when you're at minutes.
How do we know who that person is?
The person that first wants to make public comment, state your name, please.
I'll go first.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name's Tom Scott. I live in the Luck Township, and I'm a recently retired distinguished professor from the University of California, Davis. My expertise is the transmission and the prevention of
We're going to pause public comment for a moment here and see what the technical problems are.
It's because I've all got things in the background on there.
So I'm going to let Chad explain to everybody, this is our first time to try to really pull this off. I'm going to let Chad explain to everybody, and hopefully we can work this out as a group. Not everyone can have their mic on because we're getting feedback through everyone's connection, and we're hearing voices go through multiple microphones is what I believe is going on. So we need all microphones shut off except for the public comment individual. Identifying who's the first public comment person.
So Mr. Scott is and he's speaking. If everyone else will shut off their microphones, and when he's done, I'll unmute everybody, and the next person can identify themselves.
Okay.
We'll do the same thing that way.
So it may take longer than 30 minutes, but we will basically consider it 3 minutes a person. That will be 10 public comments, roughly is what we will take, no matter how long it takes. So let's try that again. The first person to do public comment, go ahead and start. Everyone else, please mute your mics.
Thank you. I thought that was a test of my ability to concentrate.
I'm Tom Scott.
I live
Luck
in Luck
Township.
Township.
I'm still hearing the same echo.
But I'll keep going.
I recently retired from UC Davis, and my expertise is the transmission and prevention of infectious disease. I've served on the chair of numerous regulatory and policy development committees for the World Health Organization, and currently a member of the Forum on Microbial Threats at the Institute of Medicine in Washington, D.C. My comment concerns the large-scale livestock facilities study group report. This is a confusing and really quite frustrating document to read if all the study group within the moratorium isn't explained. Not only did the study group not address the overall purpose, it didn't even attempt to provide that information. The report is simply a laundry list of potentially useful information that lacks an explanation of its relevance. CAFO regulation is a complicated topic that deserves a thoughtful and careful assessment, not a disconnected, superficial laundry list. The introduction states the study group is intended to support the moratorium to inform a decision about whether or not to amend existing ordinance. But it doesn't say which ordinances should be considered. What structure exists for regulatory aspects of CAFOs? And how will information in the report be used to assess those processes? Importantly, what criteria will be used to determine if there needs to be ordinance modification? What system will be imposed to minimize risk? When you read it, you're left wondering what the relevance is of the information presented. Is it all relevant? Is only some of it relevant? If it is relevant, how will it be used? And most important, what does the study group recommend? None of these critical questions are answered. So this report falls far short of reasonable expectation. For a 6-month-long study on one of the most controversial and divisive issues this county has faced in decades. We deserve better than this from our Polk County supervisor. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Next.
Okay, with the next speaker, the next person who wants to speak, state their name, please.
Are there any other public comments?
This is Jeff Peter. Can you hear me? Hello, this is Jeff Peterson. You can't have the volume turned.
There we go. All right, I'm going to do it a little different way. All right, I'm going to go one by one and unmute people and ask them if they want to speak. Person identified as owner, do you want to speak?
How do you find out who?
Mike Miles, do you want to speak? Greg Sykes, would you like to speak? Greg Sykes? Cody, would you like to speak? No. Patrick McEnroe, would you like to speak?
No, thank you.
April Zemer, would you like to speak?
No, thank you.
Bruce, would you like to speak? All right. Cindy, would you like to speak?
No, thank you.
Julie, would you like to speak? Kim, would you like to speak?
No, thanks.
Lisa, would you like to speak? Lisa Dora, would you like to speak? Sharon, would you like to speak? Correction, Susan, would you like to speak? Tammy, would you like to speak?
No, thank you.
What's that name there? Would you like to speak? I believe that's everybody, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, get better at this, and we'll move on from public comment to county board chair's report.
Vicky Bro would like to speak.
Okay, who's that?
This is Vicky Bro. Can I speak?
Yes, you can.
Okay. My name is Vicky Bro and I live in the town of Laketown, very close to the site where the proposed hog factories would be located. I'm here to ask that the board tell the Environmental Services Committee to postpone the public hearing until they have done the job they are required to do. This is the same ordinance they had a public hearing on in January. More than 100 people came to that hearing and vehemently opposed it. What has changed? Instead of allowing an infinite amount of hogs and manure 150 feet from the neighbors, the county will now allow an infinite number of hogs 200 feet from the neighbors. So what has changed? 50 feet, only 50 feet. 50 feet is the length of a typical house. That's nothing. It does almost nothing for the townspeople in Polk County. This ordinance allows an infinite number of hogs and their waste just 200 feet from the neighbor's property. It allows an infinite number of hogs and their manure, flies, and air pollution just 1,200 feet from lakes. You've heard from multiple sources, including the Polk County Health Department, that huge hog factories have serious detrimental effects on people and the land. We need to make sure that our county ordinance does not allow hog factories to damage public health, pollute water and air, and destroy property values. Once the damage is done, it is difficult, if not impossible, to reverse. That's the job of the Environmental Services Committee. Don't let them waste our tax dollars holding another hearing on the same bad ordinance they rolled out in January. Please tell them to go back and do their job. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicki. Are there any other public comments? Okay. County Board Chair's report. I guess the one thing I wanted to give, I don't know if any other supervisors attended this, but I attended the class on WCA about, it's the workshop. It's kind of the same one we had here a few weeks ago. There is a series of workshops. So I did attend that. It was on minutes, closed sessions, agendas. And one of the things that I wanted to just give everyone an update on, and I think it's just something we got to tighten it up a little bit, is I've talked to Malia about it. I believe it might go to executive committee. We discussed and some more information. But on our agendas, the thing that I think I took away from it the most is we have this outside supervisor's ability to go talk to committee. So I specifically asked that question to the attorneys at the WCA. And they were very concerned on that agenda item because it's on all of our agendas. And one of the things they really talked to us about was the walking quorum issue. And what they're concerned about is supervisors that once in a while you hear a supervisor wants to talk in public comment, or now we've kind of given, and they basically said that's a complete no, don't do it, because they're worried about walking quorums. And then also on that item, on a committee, what they were concerned with is that a supervisor would, if you're not on the committee, you shouldn't be talking, the committee should not be talking to you if you're not on the committee. Unless it's an agenda item, you sponsored a resolution, you have something specific you're working on, then you can be called on to talk. But what their concerns are is that a supervisor starts talking about something, whether it's on the agenda or not, and the discussion gets broad. Well, then if it gets broad and you start talking about something over here and you tend to lead the committee to making a decision, it wasn't on their agenda, it wasn't an action item, and they're very concerned that we would have influence as a supervisor to talk about something that's not on the agenda, but we would have an ability to influence that committee to where maybe they take action on something. So we're going to take that to executive committee, but I just want to say until this gets resolved, I think the chairmen of the committees need to really make sure they keep a very narrow scope and a very limited amount of time on what that line item is there. And Malia, maybe you can chime in a little bit on what you thought that all meant.
Okay, so as far as when something is on an agenda, specifically on a committee, and a supervisor wants to go, because we have that line item that says supervisor's not seated on that committee, they have to speak only on the narrow topic that is on that agenda, at least for the time being. Depending upon what we learn, we may just remove that entirely and they can advocate in some other way. But I also think we're contemplating putting on all of the agendas that at any committee, a quorum of the county board or any of its subcommittees could attend, because as Supervisor Nelson indicated, he's been going to a lot of committees and he's encouraging other supervisors to do that. So we're also looking at that as well.
So I'll just finish the last couple things. Two articles or two papers that we all get. The Department of Natural Resources send one out, and I thought it was very appropriate right now. They're celebrating the 50 years of the Clean Air Act of Wisconsin, and I thought that was very interesting to read about. And also the County Association celebrating Ag and Dairy Month. So I just wanted to say those were two very good magazines, articles. And I don't know that I take questions right now. I don't think as a chair I do. So I'm not going to entertain any questions about my meetings, my chair report. The next item, that's all I have. The next item is supervisor report from outside meetings attended. I'll take that by a raise of hands. Supervisor Rowdy.
A week ago Saturday, I attended the Bone Lake Management District meeting. It was on Zoom, and they're facing the exact same problems that to create their annual meeting that comes here. And we talked for an hour, and it never was completely resolved because they have to have an actual public meeting and ballots to elect their members on the board. And they couldn't resolve how to do that. When they normally meet at Wilkins, and there's around 200 people, and that doesn't work to get them there outside. What are they going to do? It's postponed for right now. They had the decision.
And they're voting at their annual meeting at the Bone Lake.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the second thing I'd like to say is, I was asked to mention that the first week in July we have Public Safety and Highway. And that's on the first Tuesday at 2 o'clock. And in July, we will be having the jail tour. So any supervisor that would like to attend that should feel free to, I think, alert the department, but should come and do that tour. It's remarkable, and it's very educational. And I would recommend the new supervisors at least think about it. It's really something. Pardon?
When is that tour?
We're always the first Tuesday of the month at 2 o'clock.
First Tuesday in July at 2 o'clock?
it's new because we have lunch. I'm sorry, that's what I want to know. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I should have, yeah, I know.
So 12 o'clock,
And you come for, they serve us lunch, and then we take the tour.
so 12 o'clock, the first Tuesday in July, all the supervisors are welcome to do the tour. And you want them to do what? If they're gonna come, you want them to,
Well, I just think they should, because of the lunch factor,
okay.
they should.
So who do we, this is Supervisor Rowdy's turn to talk. Supervisor Masters, please don't interrupt.
Maybe we could ask the sheriff if there's a name we could get. Oh, to alert because of the lunch
Yeah,
for the
I
tour.
just get a head count, just,
Yeah.
even on Monday, let me know, and then we'll make sure. And I'd like to point out, it is a jail lunch, so it's not,
He's got a point.
it's not, filet mignon, but it actually, it's a chance for us to even show that we do serve good meals in the jail, and it's just, it's all part of the annual requirement to allow the supervisors in to inspect the jail.
Well, if you come at 2 o'clock, you're up to get more to eat.
I guess.
Yeah, we do it at noon so that we can offer a lunch.
Anything else, Supervisor Rowdy? Thank you. Any other supervisors from outside committees? Supervisor Duncanson.
Yes, I attended the Apple River Protection and Rehabilitation District meeting. And I'm happy to report that they have received a grant from the Wisconsin Waterways Commission that is administered by the DNR that has enabled them, along with taking a loan, to buy an additional weed harvester to use on the Apple River to keep the Apple River clean and navigable.
Thank you. Any other supervisors that attended outside? Supervisor Warndall.
John Bonaprise and I went to the Fair Board meeting, and the fair, of course, is closed for this year. So I think John already reported that, but I thought I better. Okay.
Thank you. Any other supervisors outside meetings? I see none. And so we have administrators report. Administrator Netherland.
Thank you. I'll give a quick update on the COVID numbers, and I'll go into some other items related to COVID and then some other things. So far, as of June 16th, there have been 2,780 negative tests. So the number of tests are going up within the county. And of that 2,780, 34 tests have been confirmed. So we have had 34 cases. Currently, as you know, we've had one death tallied, which was unfortunate. That is all we have. Currently, one patient hospitalized. But I thought I'd give you a little bit of information about the rates in Polk County. Nationally, the positive testing rate has been as high as 13%, and currently it's between 5 and 8% of anybody tested. In Polk County, the average is between 1.8 and 3.2%. So because we were limited on tests, you had to have significant symptoms in most cases to be tested. And of those, our rate is about 1.8 to 3.2%. So a relatively low rate, which is, hats off to the people doing a good job of maintaining their social distance and doing good habits. Regarding
Mr. Chairman,
here in the county.
Mr. Chairman?
Supervisor Pritchard, I'll ask for questions after Administrator Netherland is finished.
Okay.
So with COVID-19, as you know, starting on June 15th, which is past Monday, we started what we're calling our reentry plan back into the county, back to more normal activities. And because we had many people, just under a half who were working remotely, we had shut down some offices, but now all offices are open with at least 1 or 2 people in each office, so that when people come to the county building, they can get in. There are some things, though, we're still doing to make sure that our employees and our visitors are safe. We're requesting that all appointments still be made in advance. We do have the front desk in the lobby, which I think has been well received, and we will continue with that. We are still restricting the building to outside meetings and groups, simply because we are really working hard, our janitorial staff, and making sure that people are not wandering through the building. So we're limiting outside access in after-hour meetings of different groups. We are doing some facility enhancements, including adding plexiglass and windows where employees or people might come in close contact with one another, but we're always encouraging social distancing. We will continue some remote working, where we found, quite frankly, that some jobs are actually performing better when they're not here. So we're actually using this as an opportunity to learn. In terms of funding, I got some good news, and we have a PPP, that's a Payroll Protection Program loan awarded to Golden Age Manor. This is a loan which is 100% forgivable if we use it appropriately. And the amount of the money is $973,000. It's used for payroll for up to 24 weeks. And I want to credit some people who did a great job of identifying this opportunity and applying for it quickly. And Golden Age Manor, you know, is a nursing home. And because their census has been hurt with this COVID virus, they have lost patients and they're at risk of losing staff. But now with this grant, we're able to keep that staff on. So Chad Roberts, our Division Director for General Government, Dana Reese and Janet Mabry did a great job. Those two are down at GAM, and that's $973,000 that will help Golden Age Manor continue to provide the great service that they do. We always keep track of how much we are spending on COVID-related expenses. We're still in that $90,000 to $100,000 range. We think much of that will be reimbursed, and in fact, FEMA has just announced that we can now submit expenses to them, and we expect that will be getting reimbursed, many of those things quickly here before the end of the year. Audit. Normally this time of year, we finished our audit, and we have been working on it. It's been a virtual audit this time, and they're almost done, but they've been delayed due to the virus. And instead of being done in June, it will be completed by mid-July. What that means to us is that our annual report that we normally deliver in July will now be done in August. But we will be doing that annual report soon. Everything, the auditor has been very positive. Everything looks good with the auditor. The courts in Polk County will be reopening for in-person and jury trials, we think, in July. Judge Anderson is spearheading the committee to finalize personal protection equipment, protocols, and best practices over there to keep jurists and people going to trials safe. And finally, we just got another grant awarded. Tanya's department got a grant for $60,400 awarded to Polk County and the St. Croix Chippewa Indians of Wisconsin for their initiatives in the Birth to 3 program. So very proud of what our staff continues to do. Despite all the distractions of COVID, we continue to do work to provide the services. We continue to reach out, and we're getting some good results from our folks who are doing the grant application. That's all I have.
Does anyone have any questions for the administrator?
Mr. Chair, Mike Pritchard.
Yeah, Mike, go ahead.
Good work, Vince. And I did have a question on the COVID census. How do we stand both with Golden Age Manor and the jail? I guess a two-part question. One was, how extensive has the testing been in both of those facilities, and what are the results?
I know that we've recently tested Golden Age Manor at twice? I think twice already, where everyone in the facility and all the staff. We've also had testing done at a couple of different nursing homes in the county, one in Luck and I believe one down in Osceola down south. And
to date, we've had 0 cases, which is excellent because the institutions or the nursing homes are our biggest fear. As for the jail, Sheriff, I can't recall if we've had testing done there.
Process in place, and it's going excellent. As far as we're concerned, we've had no exposure. Our employees have stayed healthy, and that's our largest risk is that outside influence coming in. You know, we have employees coming in, so we're screening the employees. We have when someone is brought to the jail, they're put in an isolation area, not the general population, so there's no risk to expose somebody there. We have followed the best practices, and so far it's gone great.
Thank you. If you couldn't hear that, in essence, I can attest to what he's saying is they have extreme standards over there to monitor people as they come in. They isolate them, and they're making sure, again, because of that increased risk of spreading, they're taking extra measures to make sure that people are COVID free.
Okay. So we are through the administrator's report. One thing I just thought while Vince was talking about the COVID and a lot of public has asked, I had asked Tanya to pull together that information just for our information, and I'd like it to be part of our packet or agenda so the public can see this. And it's just questions that I know keeps getting brought up, and I think this might answer a lot of questions for the public. So if anyone has any specific question, I would allow them to come up during the administrator's report on that graph. But I think really it's really for, and again, Supervisor Pritchard's more than willing or more than able to ask questions here today. But if supervisors have questions and want to get into deep discussions or issues, they should reach out directly and do it either through your committees or directly with directors, and not do it at the county board. So yes. Well, sure, as long as it's to do with COVID, since that was under administrator's report, go ahead and
So as far as the testing right now, we're working on increasing the testing capacity and how we roll that out for Polk County, and how we handle the contact tracing and all of the investigation that needs to happen after those tests are done.
Is there a public place where people can go and get tested?
We're working on having community testing. Right now, you have to go to your local clinic for the most part.
Thank you. Thanks, Chris.
anything to add to this report, Tanya, about hospitalizations that we've had in Polk County, or what this graph actually is that we handed out?
So
just give us a quick rundown of
Yep. So what I gave you is the death statistics for the year 2019. These are not official. They are the recordings of the medical examiner. You'll see on the bottom for 2019, there were a total of 426 deaths per the Register of Deeds office. And in 2019, the number that came through the medical examiner's office was 421, and this is his data on the types of deaths that he saw coming through. The leading cause of death in Polk County was heart disease, followed by cancer, and dementia was number 3. So those are our top 3 for last year. Year to date, this for 2020, again, it's not official. John Denny's has seen 168 deaths come across his desk. The Register of Deeds office has only recorded 159 of those, so it tells me there's a little bit of a lag, and that's through today's date. Number 1 cause of death for 2020 at this time is cancer, followed by heart disease, and third with dementia. So we're consistent with the causes of death in the county.
And how many hospitalizations do we have in Polk County, or have we had due to COVID?
I believe there's been 2 total.
2 total hospitalizations.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Any other questions for Tanya or Vince on the COVID stuff? Okay, we'll move on to confirmation of appointments. I have one. John Bonaprise has been appointed to the Polk County Housing Authority. And Vince is going to have one. I'll let the board decide if you guys want to do them together or not, but that was an appointment that I made to fill Jim Edgel's spot. And John's had experience in the past with that, so I thought it was appropriate to do that. I'll let Vince do his appointment.
Okay, mine is for the alternate member of the Board of Adjustment. So this is an alternate, and his name is Brian Johnson, and he has been the alternate for the past couple of years. He has a farming background. He lives down in the Clear Lake Township. He has experience with the township. He now drives a bus, does things with the after-school sports program. Very enthused, supports the idea of being the alternate for the Board of Adjustments. So I've renominated him.
So I'd like to get a motion. Second by, first by Master, second by Luke. All in favor by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Carried. Number 12, presentation of report on resolution 3-20, extending moratorium on swine CAFOs. I believe is that going to be presented by Environmental Services? And this is just a presentation tonight, correct? There's
Yes,
no
Chairman
action, there's no
Nelson.
action being taken on this.
No action being taken.
Gotcha.
In fact, thank you all, Chairman Nelson and County Board Supervisors. What we have, and I believe we have handed them out, they're your large binded documents. I think we have each copies for everyone. This report is a product of Resolution 3319 and Resolution 0320. 3319 was that first enabling resolution that applied a temporary moratorium on livestock facilities. The second resolution was the 6-month or month-to-month extension, specifically looking at swine. Within those resolutions is some guiding directives for staff to deliver this report. And there's 4 items mentioned as deliverables. 1, to look at the impacts from large-scale livestock facilities on 1, surface water, 2, groundwater, 3, air quality, and 4, the impact on the environment. As a response to what we heard in public comment, and I'll keep it real brief, if you read through either of those resolutions, there's no scope of work or mandate of staff to provide recommendations, just simply to look at those 4 learning objectives. Speaking of staff, 4 people in particular I'd like to acknowledge. Our Public Health Director, Brian Kazmarski, our Conservation Planner, Eric Wojcik, our Zoning Administrator, Jason Kesseth, and then, of course, our County Planner. We spent a lot of time rewriting and reformatting this document. If you look through the actual report, the core section, which is pages 8 through 26, address again those 4 learning objectives as outlined in those enabling ordinances or enabling resolution. And then as you go through the document, there's 4 addendums. 1 that was provided by Supervisor Olson, that's addendum A. Addendum B is research-based material similar to Supervisor Olson's, provided by Supervisor Middleton. Addendum C is the actual Town of Eureka ordinance. And then Addendum D which is a really quality product that was a research project from the Land and Water Resource Department several years ago, looking at the Horse Creek watershed. Also, there's several appendices, and they are a compilation of many things, not only the original enabling resolutions, but also it looks as though products from the public input sessions. If you recall, back in January, there was opportunities for the broader community to provide input. The survey results are in there. There's also a number of workshops that were attended, as well as other research-based journal articles referenced. So what you have here is a really overall examination of large-scale livestock facilities with an emphasis on swine. Parallel to all this is the Environmental Services Committee. They have been and continuing to do this, to work on land use policy as it relates to swine, and going forward. In particular, a major land use policy was passed, which was part of the land use ordinance, prohibiting these large-scale operations in their shoreline district. To put that into context, just under 50% of the total area in Polk County is within a shoreline district. Right now, also, a conditional use permit has been developed, at least those conditions. Public hearings have been scheduled. In fact, because of the COVID situation, we provide some flexibility. We're going to do 2 public hearings. One, sort of a virtual, similar to what we did with the Stour Trail, over the course of a full day, so working folks can also provide testimony. And then again, on July 8th, those are the 2 dates, July 1st and 8th, for testimony regarding those conditions of the CUP, which I'm sure the Environmental Services Committee will listen to, hear, and more than likely make some more adjustments. Again, that's sort of the context or the background behind everything. It is a large document. It is a extensive piece, but again, it's a comprehensive examination of large-scale livestock facilities with emphasis on swine. I invited Jason and Eric and also Tanya here as well, because, well, we look at them as subject matter experts, at least internally within county staff. So our approach is going to be this. Provide you with the context, the introduction. If you have any questions or answers, or excuse me, any questions, we can direct them to those 3 individuals. As you know, Eric is a specialist and proficient on surface and groundwater. We all know Jason's proficiency and expertise on land use and policy, and Tanya is here to talk about any health-related questions you may have.
Thank you, Bob. So we will go ahead and take a few questions. We'll just raise the hands. Does anyone have questions for the staff right now? Supervisor Duncanson.
Yes, I have a question. This report doesn't include any recommendations from the Health and Human Services Committee. And the process, is there a reason why there is not?
The resolution which directed us to develop this study doesn't ask for staff recommendations. You're right, though. It's a good point. It hasn't only been till recently that Health and Human Services has been part of the discussion. They have been invited to past this is just recently, Environmental Services Committee meetings. There's still opportunity to provide input. I know that committee is inviting some subject matter experts as well. So that is about all I can say, unless anyone can add anything else.
Okay, Amy?
Thank you. I'm trying to figure out the logistics of the Health and Human Services component of this. We've had staff input, but the committee, we met last week and we're just starting to kind of grapple with this issue and look at it. And one of the things that we laid out in Health and Human Services a couple weeks ago was the concept that Health and Human Services Committee would get back to Environmental Services. We had that logistics of the calendar. And this feels like the public, well, if you just look at the date, the public comment period, we're trying to seal the deal on that before we as the committee, health committee, have had a chance to really grapple with this issue. And I know Tanya came in, so the staff piece and the mechanics of what they can do has been done, but the bigger picture of what the committee members should be doing has not been done, and we haven't had the time to do that. And I think this really points to a lot of what we talked about earlier in our strategic planning session, the interface between the committees. And this CAFO thing is the perfect example of how Health and Human Services and Environment are interfacing or not. And I'm asking, as a committee member, I can't catch up fast enough to make this public hearing timeline of July 1st. And so I think we have some logistical issues here.
Okay, is there any other, I'll come back to anyone, but I'll just make sure I get everyone's first question out of the way. Does anyone else have any other questions before I go back to Supervisor Demling? Yeah.
I kind of mentioned this was like last December.
Thank you, corporation.
I should be loud enough. Everybody heard me before.
The people out on TV.
I know. I mentioned it last December, January, somewhere around there, that we're getting new people in, and it's going to be hard for them to catch up. And there's one thing that I've seen so far is that Amy and Fran have really taken this one in seriousness. And so I'm just telling you, they're doing their homework and they're doing their deep.
Thank you. Supervisor, I'll get to you, Fran. Supervisor Bonaprise. Thanks, Supervisor Olson.
It'll be on our agenda, and that'll be on the second Tuesday of July at 10 o'clock. And that will be after the public comment. Thanks, Amy.
Yeah. Okay, I'll go back. Anyone else got a question right now? Supervisor Duncanson.
In view of the comments that are made here today by other supervisors, I would like to make a motion that the county board...
That would be out of order right now. So there's no motions being taken right now. This is a presentation, but I will speak to this and when everyone's done asking their questions. Any other questions? So my comment as the chair is going to be that it's always this way when we have new supervisors join up. You know, the moratorium was passed when? What was the date last year? Last August, last October. So this is kind of happened to me when I got on the board too. Things were there's things under process all the time. So new supervisors do have to get up to speed quick. I believe what I understand from your Environmental Services Committee, maybe the chair or Bob could speak to that, is that these public hearings are to get information to kind of start putting this together. I haven't heard anyone saying that this is coming to the county board as a done package without the Health and Human Services having another chance to, let's say, catch up. So as the board chair, I'll make sure you guys have an opportunity to have a meeting or two on this. I'm sure Environmental Services would give you that opportunity. So I don't want to lead any public or anyone astray thinking that just because there's a public hearing, this is a done deal. So I'll leave that. And since there's no other further questions, we're going to move on. Thank you, Bob. Next item, let's see. Discussion of proposed ordinance, another board on recommendation of public safety. Do we have a motion? We could take all three. Maybe the sheriff would speak to all of these. Would be the, or should we get a motion in a second for the?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, we got a second. First and second. Sheriff, all yours.
Thank you.
We got a first and second. I would like to have the presentation now.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Supervisors, we have been graciously given several donations in the past couple months at the Sheriff's Office. The Brown family, Robert Brown, donated $7,750 to be put towards our drone program. At the committee meeting, Chairman Luke referenced that his family has traditionally been such supporters of our county, and he recognized that, you know, back in his time as the sheriff, they were actively donating to us. So it was a very nice moment. We had Mr. Brown at the committee meeting, and we thanked him there for this donation. Next, we had a donation from the nonprofit CJCC of $3,300 to be applied towards a jail technology cart. And I handed out a picture of what that cart looks like. It's a large screen TV with a computer, a camera, internet capable, and that will get utilized in our jail to be used for programs, to develop programs for education activities through the jail. So the CJCC nonprofit was very generous. This is a second generous donation they've given us. They've allowed us to improve our jail facility to allow for drug testing in the past, and now we have this nice technology cart. So I thank them for that. And then the third resolution was Supervisor Nelson's wife, on behalf of the Northern Pines Mounted Search and Rescue Group, donated $1,000 to be utilized in a search and rescue capacity at the Sheriff's Office, which we will apply to our drone program. I had the pleasure of working with that Northern Pines Mounted Search and Rescue Group several times when I worked as a deputy and as a sergeant, and they always were a fantastic group to work with. They are getting out of the business of doing that, so they had some money in their account and they wanted to donate it for us. We use our drone program for a lot of things, mostly search and rescue. It's used for Alzheimer walkaways. It's used for a quick way to search and an effective way to search, and that was kind of the group's position, as technology is kind of taking over in this world in the horseback method. But I will say they were a great group to work with. So for all these donations, it's been wonderful to have our community step up and offer us these donations. So I would ask for your support in accepting those. Thank you.
So do we have any questions for the sheriff? Supervisor Bonaprise.
It is a question, but I remember you made the comment with your new donation from Browns that the drone could carry a camera, where previously we had a drone that
Right. Yeah, the previous drone was too small to lift the infrared camera, the FLIR camera, and it cut the flight time from 21 minutes down to about 3 minutes, which really made it ineffective. So the new drone is just larger and will give us about 23 minutes of flight time with forward-looking infrared, which is very effective for searching.
Supervisor Middleton?
Is this the same Brown family in my district?
Yes.
Robert? Okay, yes. I wanted to say thank you to them. Thank you.
Yeah, they've been fabulous donors over the years. Just a year ago, they donated, or 2 years ago, they donated an ambulance and then money to maintain the ambulance that we use as a crime scene, mobile crime scene van, emergency response vehicle. So, and like Jay went back into the 70s when he was working here, and they were generous back then. So their family's always been wonderful to work with.
Yeah, Sheriff, and I'd just like to compliment you too, and thank you for coming and thanking the people that do this in the community. I think that goes a long ways. I really appreciate that.
My pleasure.
So we have a first and a second. No other questions? All in favor by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign, carried. Recommendation,
one other announcement.
Okay.
Brian's persistent here, and on the bottom here, we do have a new chief deputy. We do have a new chief deputy, and that's Deputy Don Burrows was permanent in that position now. So excited to work with him, taking over for Chad's vacancy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. Recommendation, or without recommendation by general government, discussion of possible action on resolution 1820, resolution to create Parks and Trails Advisory Tag. Do we have a first or a motion? Motion by Duncanson, second by Masters. Bob, would you like to give the presentation on this first before we get into any questions?
Chairman Nelson, County Board, thank you again for this opportunity to talk about this new concept, which is the Trail and Parks Advisory Group. As mentioned, this was a recommendation from the General Government Committee, and it's really born out of a concept from our Trails and Parks Coordinator, Ben Elfeld. So it's gone from his concept, and it's really evolved into something much greater, something that we all invite you to consider. As you know, Polk County owns 7 parks. We maintain over 400 miles of trails, and recreation is an emerging activity. That's pretty obvious, just through observation and people's healthy behaviors and active living. Recreation is important, particularly in this part of the country. We just went through that prioritization session earlier this afternoon, and for the second year in a row, tourism, parks, recreation was ranked in that upper tier. I think last year it was rated second. This year it's rated the 3rd highest priority by the county board. Behind this concept is, well, there is a need to establish and repair and build new relationships for our parks and trails. And I think this is really important because of the outcomes and the fallout from the Starwood Trail experience. There's a real need to build relationships now. And right now, Ben, our Trail and Parks Coordinator, he actively works with seven user groups. These are mobilized, organized user groups that all are different. They represent activities such as ATV, UTV, bicycling, cross-country skiing, equestrians, hiking, walking, running, camping, and snowmobiling. And there's also a need to better understand the recreational vision and needs, as well as opportunities to build collaborations with some of our municipalities. If you look throughout our county, City of Amory, the Village of Osceola, the City of St. Croix Falls, the City Trails, just to name a few, have planned their communities around accessibility, around recreation, around trails or trail networks. And I think there's some opportunities to work with not only those existing communities, but other communities in collaborating and building a more comprehensive trail network. Also, with those 7 identified user groups, many of which we work with in the operation and maintenance of our trails. So there's another real need to, again, strengthen those relationships. I think another critical piece is that there's space for all. In other words, that every recreational demand, every user group has opportunities to recreate. And I think we have some competitive advantages over our neighboring counties. Just the quality of life, the amount of public domain we have, the existing corridors, the opportunities to secure and acquire easements, interlinking or connecting our existing trails. There's a lot of opportunity there. We have yet to really gone out and plan for that. And so that's kind of the scope of work or one of the main objectives of this Trail and Parks Advisory Committee. There'll be representation for each user group or key stakeholder group. They'll all have an equal voice. They'll be the ones to look at our existing planning documents. We've always talked about the outdoor rec plan and how it's a schluck product, right? Do it and update it every 5 years, but we don't really implement anything. We need to bring that alive. It's a lot of work. It's a valuable document. There's opportunities to, again, look at all of our master plans and all our MOUs and try to find that connectivity. And so we think as staff, this is the best approach. Be an apolitical, cross-section, equal, and comprehensive approach to trail planning, as well as building capacity for the future. Now, attached to this resolution, and I think, was it Supervisor Luke, you might have mentioned this is like several resolutions in one. Well, it's evolved into that. And one of the things here is the financial piece. And we look at this as startup resources. So this group can get mobilized, get organized, and hit the ground running, implement some low-hanging fruits that are highly impactful, visual, show positive change, again, build capacity, build relationships, and make Polk County, a destination for our day trippers and tourists. Because again, we're geographically positioned with right next to a large MSA. We have, I'm going to argue this, I think we have more recreational assets than our neighbors. And so it's just a matter of being coherent, planning for it, and applying resources to our assets. I mean, it's community and economic development 101. You identify your assets, you apply resources to them, and you will see positive change. So that's the bulk of the intent. There is a lot more information here about the logistics of the Trail Advisory Group, and I do believe there is one potential amendment as a product from the General Government Committee as well.
Thank you, Bob. So I'd like to first recognize the chairman of the committee to let us know how did general government move this forward. Supervisor Arcan.
The general government sent it here with our full recommendation from our committee.
You have anything else to add, Supervisor Arcan?
Only that I would offer Supervisor Middleton to speak to it before I would.
Supervisor Middleton? This would be the appropriate time, Supervisor Middleton, also if you can make your amendment.
Okay.
So you could make that now and then maybe get into more discussion.
Do you want me to do the amendment first?
Yeah, why don't you?
So look at your resolution. We have a clarifying amendment on line 78. And this is in regards to clarifying their representation, who gets on the committee, et cetera. And I'm just going to read you what we've drafted up. This group, and Lisa, I can just give this to you. This group shall have one representative of each stakeholder group, not to exceed 15 members. Initial appointments shall be received through an application process and approved by county administrator. So that replaces all of item C, and I think clarifies kind of the membership piece.
So item C would be removed and inserted with that new language. Is that
Correct.
your amendment?
Correct.
Do we have a second to that amendment? Supervisor Masters seconded. Any discussion about that amendment? Bob, you have a
The
discussion about
last
that amendment?
sentence in C is remains though.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay. Yep.
So the last sentence be specific, start at each?
Right on line 82, Chairman Nelson, that remains. Each stakeholder member shall be a voting member of the group. That remains.
Gotcha. Is the first and second okay with that, leaving that line? So I see yes, okay.
Yes.
Any other discussion about the amendment? I see none. All in favor by saying aye. Opposed, same sign. Do we have a,
Mr. Chair? Mr. Chair?
yes, Supervisor Edgel? Or, excuse me, Jim?
Pritchard.
Yeah, I can't see it. Supervisor Pritchard.
On line
Supervisor Pritchard?
33, which is part of a whereas clause.
Supervisor
I
Pritchard?
should just say,
Supervisor Pritchard? We have a amendment on the floor that's been first and seconded. Are you speaking to
We
the
just
amendment?
voted on it, I thought.
Order?
I thought we just voted on it.
No, we didn't. Did we vote on it and we finished the vote? Okay, so it passed. So are you making another amendment?
I've got another amendment, if I may.
Go ahead. Make the amendment.
And I just want to say that I support this concept. I think it's wonderful. We've got this is one of the big things for our county, and I think we can enhance it in this manner. On line 33, it says, whereas clause, future recreational development and so on, that will promote economic development and tourism. And I would like to insert these words before the word economic in line 33. Health, comma, quality of life, comma, and then we'd go on to read economic development and tourism. And I think, in my mind, those are equally as important as the economic development and tourism, but we hope that the economic and tourism will follow from our enhancement. So I would make that amendment.
So could you read back the amendment, clerk, how you heard it? Can you say it again, Supervisor Pritchard, exactly your words?
Exactly, on line 33, after the word promote, insert these four words: health, comma, quality of life, comma, and then it goes on economic and finishes.
Okay.
Okay, so we have an amendment, a motion. Do we have a second? Supervisor Duncanson seconded it. Any discussion about Supervisor Pritchard's amendment? See none. All in favor by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Same sign. Carried. Thank you, Supervisor Pritchard.
Thank you.
To the original resolution, I think this would be the opportunity now. Are there any other amendments? If I don't see any, then I would like Supervisor Middleton now she spoke at our general government meeting, and I think it'd be appropriate for you to give us your input.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. As some of the public may know, we had a planning session just before this, and this piece, this trail advisory group, really fits into what we talked about in the world of planning. So I'm really excited about this because it allows us to really go big picture on the interconnectivity of our trails. How do we connect to Minnesota? How do we connect to other counties? And I really feel like the timing is right now. We have a really great group of planners and staff on the trail piece. We've got Ben pushing us and leading the way as a staff person. And so the ask here is going to be for financing to support both outside resources and and augment what the staff is already able to do. Our staff is completely capable of doing everything that we would need, and I'm talking about mapping and planning and meeting facilitation and survey work, but we're putting a big project on here, and we're not talking about just some quick and dirty little plan. So we really feel like it's important to make this kickoff solidly with the resources that we're asking for from us tonight, so that we have the resources to hire some outside people. And I think this is our time. This is our moment to have an outdoor showcase for Polk County. And I'm really excited about this. And I think we have a great staff. We have 2 supervisors that are really excited about it, and a process to put some other bodies in there. So I don't know if anybody questions, but I'm very excited about this.
Supervisor Masters?
In terms of the financing, general government, I voted for it, but my question was, I was just thinking about it after we did this, is there any other dollar resources that could be obtained for any other groups that are going to be involved with this is my question. Thank you. And I don't know who can address that, but.
I think Bob.
Bob or Amy, whatever.
I think Bob would answer that.
Supervisor Masters, that's an excellent question. I will tell you that the TAG group itself, again, the Parks Trails Advisory Group, is going to drive this process. So they'll determine what project we'll pursue. We could go straight ahead and go straight to a comprehensive trail network plan. And if we do something like that, well, if you recall, last year we applied for a TAP grant, which is basically a transportation alternative program grant. That would subsidize a comprehensive trail network plan. That grant is to provide alternative arteries, routes, modes of transportation for pedestrians and bicyclists. And so that would complement an effort to do the comprehensive piece where we'd look at other users. So that grant is $60,000. We'll know by the end of the month. So there's an example of a subsidy that could really move this forward. And if that's the choice by the TAG or the Trail Advisory Group to pursue that project, when we bid it out and develop the scope of work, staff will identify things that we can do. Like Amy had mentioned, we can do the community engagement. We can do some of the mapping. Some of the more technical or time-consuming things the consultant could do. So I guess what I'm saying in a nutshell is we as staff can subsidize some of those costs as well. And then furthermore, there's a number of other different programs out there that are recreation and tourism related that we can identify if the TAG wants to pursue those appropriate initiatives. So yes, we'll be actively looking at other sources of funding.
I think one thing too, when we talk about funding, I'm going to ask Malia to make a comment about that. I think this would be important now for her to give us kind of a heads up on this.
Because it would be amending the 2020 budget that already exists, that was put in place in 2019, it would require a 2/3 majority to vote, to pass today.
And thank you, Malia. Supervisor O'Connell?
So where's the money coming from?
Sure. Okay, that would be directed to Chad.
So if you pass this resolution, then next month we'll have a budget amendment resolution. By our policies, this is an amendment because you're adding a category. You get that resolution. I will actually, looking at the budget, we'll transfer it from other professional services to the new tag line, if you approve that. And because we have room in that line right now, we won't have to tap the general fund for the time being, it looks like, within the budget. We've got about 100,000 in other professional. We can move 50,000 into this line. We'll just do it through the resolution next month.
Supervisor Demling?
I would suggest that everybody kind of read the Osceola Sun that just come out yesterday. And it's on the front page, an article saying that they want the Stour Trail back to the way it was in the beginning. Everybody uses it. There was a big article in the Sun.
Thank you. Supervisor Bonaprise?
I think our chairman moved
Mike, John.
John, Chairman Luke, I think you had some suggestions that are public protection and highway about some other possible funding that you had talked about that were, maybe could come about.
Would you like to speak to that, Supervisor Luke?
Sure, I get my microphone. Yeah. When we started talking about, we were specifically interested in an ATV group, and Doug was very, very active in that, and I hope that he's an appointed member in this group to represent us quite well in law enforcement. The thing that isn't addressed here, I mean, you're talking about funding, and I'm kind of interested to see how this is going to develop. If there is specific funding that's available from ATV groups specifically for ATV, how that would affect a multi-membership organization. I mean, that's something we can address in the future, and to address that, but there's funding available to specific groups for specific purposes, and if it would somehow have to be diverted or earmarked directly for that specific purpose, and there's some significant funding. These groups like ATVs and stuff are a licensed vehicle, and there are a number of dollars available, not as many as there used to be when they first became popular in recreational activities, but that's something we can address in the future. I'd like to see how this group, I'm totally in favor of this, and see how this develops, and hopefully it can be a little more civil than it has been in the past. And there's been and that's one of the reasons that we have started addressing ATVs, to take some of the pressure off the other groups that had their earmarks for specific goals. And so we thought maybe a different or a separate group, but this appears like it could be a functional a committee that would work quite well for the county overall, because I think one hand can address the others quite well.
Supervisor Middleton?
I would just add, on the funding piece, any group that we would go to and potentially partner always wants to see what's your plan. So for us to be able to say, here's this big countywide plan that we just did, this is how much money we think we need for the ATV connectivity issue, this is what we need for here, and have it really laid out. It's a much more sellable way of leveraging money than not having a plan.
Thank you. Bob, did you speak to, I heard a question a little bit about how, this group of 15, can you explain to the public what's the process of forming this group? I think that's important.
Oh, absolutely.
And with Supervisor Middleton, she made the amendment, but I think if you just give a little broader.
Absolutely. We have developed an advertisement, an ad to put in the paper. We're asking applicants to provide a resume. We're looking for folks with appropriate skill sets. In other words, have had some past experiences in trail development, building infrastructure, planning, and also we're going to require some references as well. So our hope is that we get representation brought forward by each user group. That may or may not happen. But that's our hope. In addition to that, we'd like to open it up to some other folks that could be potential collaborators, people that have political capital, people that may be associated with, utilities, economic development, local governments, just to provide sort of a more objective and neutral perspective, but potentially partner and work with the user groups as well. So once we receive those applications, the idea is that they'll be vetted by the county administrator and staff. We appreciate that. It takes us out of the decision-making process, and we're confident that Vince will make the right recommendations. We want to inform our governing committee along the way. So I know with the Environmental Services Committee, we're going to keep them apprised of not only that recruitment piece, but who's been appointed. And that's the thing. This group will be advisory. Maybe not the only advisory group, but as we build success stories and build capacity, there'll be a sense of trust that as a county board, as elected body, you will have an established group to provide recommendations or ask recommendations of, or ask them to do certain projects or provide certain information. So I think that's a big piece of it all, to sort of centralize trail issues and park issues to one group and have them be a resource for you as you make sometimes contentious but important, informed decisions.
Thank you, Bob. Any other questions for Bob, or are we ready to vote? Call the question? Okay, all in favor by saying aye for support of resolution 1820, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign. Carried. Thank you, Bob. We have discussion possible action on resolution 1920, resolution to increase purchasing levels in financial policy section of general code. Do we have a motion? We got a second by Tracy. Discussion, Chair, or Arcan? This came through general government?
Yeah, it did. I think again, it came through with a unanimous recommendation. And I would maybe ask the administrator to speak to it before I would try to.
Administrator Netherland?
Okay. This is basically the federal guidelines for purchasing. We have a tendency to follow that, and we have. 2018, they changed their levels of purchasing, and so you see the standard purchasing level goes up from $3,500 to $10,000. Between $10,000 and $25,000, that we require informal bids. Greater than $25,000 to $50,000, we require formal bids, and then orders greater than or equal to $50,000, we require an RFP. So we obviously have a lot of internal policies on our spending and so on, but this is just something so that we make those large purchases so we are consistent with the federal guidelines.
Does anyone have any questions for the Administrator Netherland on this resolution, or Chad? Seeing none, all in favor by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same sign, carried. Next item is 16, update and discussion, Administrator Netherlands' investigation of options for saving the Clam Falls Dam per resolution 720. Administrator Netherland.
Thank you. Let me give you kind of a brief update. I've reached out to numerous people, including Northwestern Electric, the Clam Falls Township, and also the Clam Falls Flowage River or Lake Association, the WDNR, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers, state legislators, as well as others. But let me boil this down. The issue, as you recall, is the dam is required to have some repairs. The repairs 4 or 5 years ago were estimated in the 1.5 million range. Now, that's an estimate. Some engineers would say it's too high. Some engineers would say it's higher than that now. But the bottom line is between an escrow account that Northwestern Electric had established, or one of their partners, combined with a grant that a nonprofit organization or a municipality could receive up to $400,000, it still leaves a shortage of about $600,000. So the issue are two things. One, can we get someone to take ownership of it, knowing that they would have to spend $600,000 or get money to repair that? And then the second issue is, once you take ownership, there are annual costs associated with it. I would estimate that cost to be about $30,000 a year. Liability insurance, general maintenance, and then putting money away in an escrow fund for major repairs as they're needed over the course of 50 years or whatever. My discussions with the WDNR and the Army Corps of Engineers basically said, we're taking a lot of dams down these days. They're a liability, they're a risk in some cases, right? In fact, we've heard of the 2 recent cases over the past 6 weeks where a dam in Michigan, and I think the other one's in Ohio, collapsed and did great damage and flooding. Just heightens the awareness. We don't anticipate that happening, but that's why liability insurance is so expensive. The biggest opportunity that I have seen to date is speaking with our state legislatures. Ms. Magnifici and Ms. Shackner have both indicated they'd be supportive of seeking an earmark in next year's state budget. Going to the lobbying, putting it in the budget to say we're going to earmark $600,000 or whatever it is for this dam. That would pay for the dam. Northwest Electric, I think, would gladly give it away to someone who would take that dam and remove them of the liability and the maintenance costs, right? So if we could get that funding from the state, what are the chances of us getting that funding from the state? Nobody knows. Let's just say it's 50% chance, 50-50, and that might be generous. That's one option. The problem is, if we get that funding, who's going to pay that $30,000 a year? And at this point, we're still seeking an answer to that. We have not had anyone step up and say, we think we can raise that. The town of Clam Falls has discussed it. They have not come to any decision. The other thing that's a hurdle, though, is Northwest Electric has submitted an application to the DNR to start drawing down the water and removing the dam. That decision will come later this summer. Wisconsin DNR says we don't have any problem if they withdraw that request and delay it for a year, because their deadline that they were given doesn't expire until late next year or early the following year. So I went back to Northwest Electric and asked them, would you consider delaying? I was on their board agenda today, and I spoke with them over WebEx, and they are taking it under consideration. You can imagine their questions. You're asking us to delay that decision, have us pay the maintenance, liability insurance fees, and take on that risk for another year for the opportunity for someone to save the dam, and do you have somebody who's going to do that? I said, I don't have anybody yet, but we're working on it. And they just said, we'll take that. They're considering it that now, and I'll hear back from them soon. So that's, I don't know, I'll take some questions. I know it's kind of a long, convoluted story, but we're making progress, but we're not there yet.
Supervisor Duncanson.
You mentioned a lake association. Is there a lake district with taxation authority?
I don't think the district has taxing authority, the township might.
If just a possibility is the formation of a lake district under Wisconsin statutes that would have taxing authority. And if everything would work out, that $30,000 a year, insurance, maintenance, whatever, they could formulate a budget and levy for that. And then the parcels within that lake district would pay that cost proportionately by their value.
So right now, there are 27 property owners on the Clam Falls flowage, and the DNR is a big property owner. So you could say right there, well, what if each one of those paid $1,000? I'm not saying that's what they would do, but you can see you could get there. Plus, the town of Clam Falls probably benefits to some extent by having that flowage there. So there might be a taxing authority, but then that would become the decision of the town of Clam Falls.
Supervisor Luke.
Yeah, we went over that with them some time ago. And the problem exists that they don't have a very large group to draw from, like Apple River or North Twin or one of the other lakes, Amy Lakes, or Bone Lake. You know, they got huge amount of participants, so they didn't have, they're not available up there. So there have to be they were trying to work out something between township, lake district, and those type of things, but it's been presented.
Chad?
I don't know if technology would help, but I think it would be nice with the presentation, and I just thought of this as for us to have a picture of what Clam Falls Lake looks like. DNR owns a lot of property about it. Supervisor Olson, this is your backyard. I'm surprised you don't have your hand up. Do you have anything to add?
It's almost in my front yard, in fact. It's the discussion today is no different than it was when Northwestern came to the town of Clam Falls 5 years ago. It's who's going to own it. That's really the issue. The town of Clam Falls isn't financially set to own it. If you could get the DNR to pay taxes on the 3/4 of the land that they own, I'm sure we would all probably be fine to own it. But that's the biggest issue. The DNR, Department of Natural Resources, owns the vast majority of the land around the lake.
My next steps will be to continue. One, I'll go back to Northwest Electric. I will continue to look for ways to fund that $30,000 a year. And if we can get any inkling of somebody or some group or taxing authority to say, you know, we can chip in and get close to that, then I think we would start the ball rolling with Northwest Electric, and then we would start working with our state legislators. There's some ifs in there and buts, but that's probably the next step. And of course, someone could always seek some type of legal maneuver to stop the withdrawal down of the lake.
All right, thanks for the update. We need to go into closed session for anything?
No.
Okay. Supervisors' announcements. I guess just by raise a hand if anyone has any announcements. Don't see any. Oh, Joe, go ahead.
Yes, I was informed that going back to the case.
Going back to this K4 and stuff, on December 11th, 19, Brian Karminski presented the public health risk concerns before the committee. And we have not heard back from that anything to it yet. So it has been presented to the county board. It's on a timeline, but I haven't heard nothing back on it yet, so.
Maybe you should give him a call.
I will.
Okay, any other announcements?
Mr. Chair, move to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, and a second, all in favor? Aye.
Signed, aye. Thank you, everyone.